Hey, welcome back to the Bullpen Sessions podcast. My name is Andy Neary, and this is episode 291. Today, I am excited. I actually got to sit down with Colton Storla, an employee benefit consultant with North Risk Partners in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And even better, Colton and I got a chance to sit down in person as we were, I was hosting a workshop for his team. So I wanted to have Colton on today's podcast because he is one of the up and coming rising stars in the employee benefits arena. But more importantly, I just love the drive and the discipline Colton has when it comes to being a student of the game, both on and off the field. And so I'm excited to bring his story with you as a former college football player and started his career as a strength and conditioning coach at the University of Iowa and then became a benefits advisor. He's got some great professional and personal development lessons he's learned as a strength and conditioning coach at the University of Iowa, and just share some great stories of how he continues to use the drive and the discipline that he had on the football field to excel in the employee benefits arena. So I'm excited to bring him to you. Here we go, episode 291, Colton Storla. I've got the man, Colton Storla, with me. We're actually live, Rochester, Minnesota. We're doing a workshop this afternoon.
Sure.
And so I thought we'd take the time to get him on the podcast, and you could get a chance to learn a little bit about this guy. I really love the way he ticks. Former athlete at a high level, played college football, which we're going to talk about. So Colton, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So for the few people who don't know who you are, because you're on LinkedIn a lot and you are definitely creating a presence in the benefit space, just introduce yourself. Tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Colton Storla, born and raised in the Cedar Rapids, Iowa area. Grew up there, went to college there, and just really haven't, moved away. Now working in the employee benefits field at North Risk Partners.
So I got to ask, okay, Cedar Rapids, what do they call it? The city of five seasons?
City of five smells.
I was going there next, but what is it with the five seasons? I've heard it referred to as the city of five seasons. Is that right?
Yeah.
What's the fifth season?
I don't even know. I just know it as five smells because we got Cargill, we've got Quaker Oats. So Co-College is right by Quaker Oats. And so we always knew when it was Crunchberry Day.
So the air would smell like Crunchberry?
Crunchberries.
Yeah. That's interesting. So I grew up in a town where we live back in that same town now. We had a plant in town called Brownberry and Carnation. So two separate plants. And my grade school was literally in between them. So there would be days Brownberry was baking raisin bread.
Oh, yeah.
And Carnation made like chocolate milk stuff.
Okay.
Like malted milk. Yeah. So you'd smell chocolate and then you'd smell raisin bread. That was a good smell.
Yep.
Okay. So you mentioned Co-College.
Yep.
You went to college there.
I did.
Right. So talk about growing up, because you definitely were an athlete as a kid. By the way, I never asked you, Iowa, were you a wrestler?
I was. That was actually like one of my first true sports. My dad was, very much, supportive in that realm. I think I got into it when I was like 4 years old. I still have my first singlet. It's tiny. And traveled around with one of my good friends from church we got a lot of trophies. And I just actually recently came across the big tub with all my trophies, which was kind of cool. But then, started playing all the sports, baseball, football, basketball, did track. But once I got to high school, all my friends played football and basketball for the most part. So I quit doing baseball. I quit doing wrestling. And, I kind of, that's probably one of my bigger regrets. I was good at both wrestling and basketball, but I went the basketball route. Everyone always asks me, it's either a toss-up. Are you football or are you wrestling? I loved wrestling.
I have the same regret. I was not a big kid in high school. I only weighed like 145 pounds when I left high school. My regret is I quit playing football after my sophomore year.
Yeah.
I wish I would have spent more time getting bigger. Like knowing what I know now, I wish I would have kept playing football.
Yeah, my parents, they were constantly in the gym working out and things like that. I remember.
Okay, so your dad's kind of a fitness buff too?
Yeah, both my mom and my dad. And I would, ride my bike to the gym with them, and then I'd have to go to daycare. So once I hit that 14, I was like, can I get a membership? I even remember my dad would give me a pager. And so while I was in daycare, so I'd know when he'd come pick me up.
That's awesome.
By
the way, for you young advisors, a pager is something you wore on your hip. It's funny you talk about wrestling. So my dad was the JV wrestling coach in the town I grew up in.
Mhm.
Really good wrestling coach, but he never wrestled a day in his life.
Yeah.
Just learned the sport. My exit out of wrestling wasn't as regretful as yours. I think I was in first or second grade. Our town had a really good youth wrestling program. And I went to a meet, went to a tournament. I think I got pinned in like 30 seconds. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm playing basketball.
Yeah, I mean, neither of my parents played sports.
Wow.
And neither of them went to college either. So,
wow, that's dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, I mean, Iowa is just a wrestling haven. Well, nowadays it's Pennsylvania with Cale Sanderson at Penn State, but
we still sell out every home meet at
Iowa does.
Iowa, yeah.
I would love, I'd love to go to a Iowa Penn State match.
Yeah.
If Penn State's at Iowa, because I remember the stories about. So my mom grew up in Iowa, and obviously Dan Gable was a legend there. And the stories of, was it the football, the away locker room for Iowa football or Iowa wrestling was painted pink?
Football.
It was football. Okay. Okay, so you get to high school, you're playing football, basketball, and baseball or track?
Just mostly football and basketball.
Okay.
I did track my senior year.
When did you realize that you had a legit shot to play football at the college level? Because I know you won't admit it, but I've heard stories you're kind of a local legend in the football realm in Cedar Rapids.
My freshman year, I actually got brought up. I was running back. I got brought up to play sophomore.
Okay.
And I started most games as a sophomore, and scored touchdowns and all that good stuff. And actually, our varsity team went to the playoffs that year, and they brought me up
as a freshman.
Just run, scout offense. And so that was kind of that point where I think I remember my coach specifically saying, hey, this is, a really good opportunity for you. You're probably not going to play in the game, but, we want you to really run the scout offense. And then maybe next year as a sophomore, we'll have you play varsity. And so that's what happened.
Were you pretty built as a freshman? I mean, to come up as a freshman in football, it's one thing like in baseball or even basketball, but to come up in football where size is a thing and at running back, were you pretty built as a freshman or?
Yeah, just going back to my parents and instilling that, health and wellness early on and going to the gym. I think my freshman year, even of high school, I was getting, some personal training stuff at the gym, just some weightlifting and speed and agility. So I was constantly trying to work on that. I think I was probably 190 pounds.
As a freshman?
Dang. Freshman.
Because you're not, you're not extremely tall. So that means you were built out.
Yep.
Okay. Wow. That's impressive. So sophomore year, end up playing varsity?
Yes.
Starting as a running back varsity?
I didn't start. But I split time with another really good running back.
Okay. So let's look at your high school career because we're going to talk about college because you ended up playing running back at College.
Yep.
Right? Looking at some of your high school accolades. So by the time your career was done, I've got to know some things like, okay, most touchdowns in a game. 7 touchdowns. Dang. All running or receiving too?
All rushing. And actually one of our family friends is Kerry Bender, and he went to Marion High School where I went and then went to College too. So I kind of looked up to him. I was 24 growing up my entire life, but he retired his jersey in high school. So I went to 28. And he had 6 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving. So I matched the total in a game.
But you got the 7 rushing. That's awesome. Most yards in a game.
Most yards in a game was, I don't even know the exact, but I think it was like 350.
Did you, by like your junior, senior year, were you at kind of the top of the list when it came to most yards in a season, most touchdowns in Iowa?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's another kid up at Union, West Burnside.
Okay.
That him and I were always like trying to just battle for number 1 place because they had that online stats thing where you could look up every week.
Yep.
Everybody's stats. So yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. What was it like for you? Because Co's D3, right? Yep. What was it like for you? Was it a big jump for you to go from high school football to playing at College, playing in the backfield?
Wasn't a huge jump. I do remember, getting in that mindset, like I'm going to play college football. Like these guys are going to be bigger than me. Maybe like I need to, protein and lift weights and all these things. And I got to Co and I think I was like 215 pounds. And like, as we were,
so you were freaking
running around, my running backs coach was like, yeah, I think you need to lose a little bit of weight. You're a little slower than what I remember. So I was playing at probably 198, 195.
Yeah. And Cole, remind me the conference Cole was in.
It was the IAC at the time.
Which is Iowa, because obviously I come from Wisconsin.
Yep, and we played some Wisconsin.
Oh, so at the time, were you playing college at the time? Whitewater was kind of at the peak of their, call it dynasty?
Okay. Yeah, we made it up there.
Okay. What did you notice? I'm curious because I played college baseball, and the thing I noticed the most in college with sports is for a lot of kids, it's a tough transition because they were the all-state player from their hometown. I call it the hometown hero, right? Now you're on a team of guys who were all-state. Was that the same for you, that same experience for you where you saw, okay, now you're playing at a level where everybody's good?
Yeah.
Did you have to make a big transition? Like, did you notice a big transition playing running back, like with things like the speed of the defense and the talent at the linebacker position compared to when you were playing high school football?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we ran a much different offense there, so that was kind of a learning curve. And yeah, just even from a strength conditioning standpoint, I was definitely bench, squat, deadlift kind of guy, and strength conditioning coach. He was, very, triple dimension movements, hangs cleans and things like that. So that was a learning curve. And I was like already, in the gym all the time. So him and I didn't have the greatest rapport right away. I'm like, what do you know? Like, I'm big.
Okay.
So him and I became really good friends, and that's what kind of got me into strength conditioning later on. But from the speed of the game, definitely. There's, some big linebackers I had to go toe to toe with. And I'm the more of the type of person that's not going to try and juke you.
You're going to go right through.
Yeah. So I got stuck a couple times. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you notice, I also believed, when you play in high school, a lot of guys can get by with its talent alone.
Yeah.
Right. And then you get to the college level, and it is about the work you put in off the field. Did you notice that difference too? That, to your point, no, I actually have to put a lot of time in at the weight room and stuff like that if I'm gonna.
Yeah, for sure. And I was grateful to have, the strength conditioning coach that we had. I was, in my hometown, at where Co College was too. So, even during the summers, we'd get a group of guys together and just constantly try and, push each other and, get better.
Talk about that a little bit, because obviously, when you graduated from Co, you didn't get into insurance right away.
Mm-mm.
Was it with this strength and conditioning coach? Did he have an impact on where you wanted to go with your career? Because you actually started in strength and conditioning.
Yeah. So just like most kids going to college, you don't really know exactly what you're going to do. I went back and forth with like law enforcement and, architecture, engineering, because my dad actually owned a construction company growing up. So I was, I like the working with your hands, manual labor stuff. But I got into, Co and got to know Coach Walter, and, he was an awesome coach and mentor, and started, going down that path of physical education with an emphasis in strength conditioning. And, some people ask me, about games and practice and things like that. I'm just like, meh. It was more so like the preparing for the season. And, games are fun, when you're scoring touchdowns and stuff. But I think I was more just, into the preparing and
that's really cool. Out. You kind of feel the same way now? I know you still exercise a ton.
Yeah.
Are you as much into exercise now than you were back then because of that fact that you just like to prepare?
Yeah, absolutely. Just starting my day off with the workout.
Yeah.
And, starting it off on the right foot. I really enjoyed it.
That's a really good point you just brought up, because I've noticed, like, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've signed up for things like a race or a bike, bike race or a run thing. And I found myself actually enjoying the process of getting ready for it more than the actual event.
Yeah.
It's like almost the event at the end of the day is a non-event.
Sure.
Because you actually enjoyed the journey. That's a really good point. So talk about, so you decided, it's funny too, I wanted to share this, architecture. I actually went to college for architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's what's funny. So sophomore year, you start studio. And I went to UW Milwaukee. Studio was 1 to 5 p.m. Tuesday, Friday afternoon, I think. Well, I was on scholarship for baseball.
Yeah.
And my fall practice started at 3.
Get out early.
And I went up to the studio, our professor, and said, I have to leave early on Tuesday and Fridays. Like, I have practice. And he said, I think you need to make a decision. What's more important, architecture or baseball?
Mhm.
Next day, I was a finance major.
Yep.
I said, I'm here because, they're helping me pay for school. And sorry, I guess I'm going to have to change majors. So, but out of high school, I wanted to do architecture for sure. Okay. So strength and conditioning. Talk about that. You actually got a degree.
Yep.
Had some opportunity, and you actually had an opportunity to work at the University of Iowa, which is pretty cool.
So my strength conditioning coach at College, he had some ties to the University of Iowa. And so Coach Doyle interviewed with them and Coach Braithwaite at the time. And so I was working with the Iowa football program after graduation. So awesome experience. It was definitely not a walk in the park where you just show up and, get to experience this, cool thing. It was very cool, but it was a grind.
Yeah.
14, 15 hours a day, getting in there bright and early. I had to do book talks, both personal development and professional development. So all their freshmen that they had coming into the program had to read like Eat That Frog or Energy
Even
Buzz,
the football players?
Atomic Habits, all the coaches, new coaches. And then I had to write a paper on it and then, give that to Coach Braithwaite. And then I had teachings. So, and then I had to do the workouts. So he's like, you're not going to, teach my players if you can't do the workouts yourself and also be able to teach the workouts. And so the coaches would teach me the progression of certain movements, whether that's, hang cleans or squats, things like that. And then I had to reteach that back to them. And I had a rude awakening early on because I kind of put my own twist on it, and or maybe I just didn't have the right notes. And he goes, no, it literally needs to be word for word, because their philosophy was, if a coach comes up and you're correcting someone on their squat, weight on your heels, or things like that, someone comes up and says something different, well, while they're doing a movement, maybe it's not clicking in their mind or things like that. So everything was uniform. And then setting up for workouts, everything was uniform. I had to go out on the field and it was stick, foam roller, ball, 3 steps, stick, foam roller, ball, 3 steps, and 3 rows of that for the, skill semis and, linemen, and everything was to a T.
Well, I got done. I read Nick Saban's book recently on leadership, and they talked about the fact his standard operating procedure was legendary, to the point where guys like Kirby Smart, all these coaches that have gone on, Lane Kiffin, other guys that have coached under him, have literally, you could go to their program, Ole Miss, Georgia, wherever, Loxley at Maryland. It is Nick Saban's program to a T, language and all, except for the fact it's a different logo.
Yeah.
That's it. Because it was that good, to your point about Iowa. And I think one thing it's funny about Iowa, people don't realize they've had 2 coaches since the 70s.
Yeah.
Hayden Fry, Kirk Ferentz. When were you at Iowa? When you worked with the program? It
was 2016, so that would have been George Kittle's.
Oh, okay. So you got to work with Kittles.
George Kittle, how was that? Akram Wadley, Jaleel Johnson, LaShawn Daniels. Yeah.
You see Kittles today as San Francisco tight end, right? Like, is that how he was?
Exactly. Okay. Yep. He was very much energetic and entertaining, and sometimes even Dallas Clark would come back and and same thing. Just running around and working out with the guys.
Yeah, I was definitely tight end. I mean, the number of tight end. I think I nerd out on this stuff. I looked last year. I think there was like 7 or 8 Iowa tight ends on NFL rosters. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious. This didn't last forever. Strength. What made you make the decision to get out of strength conditioning and pick insurance, man?
Going back to, I was at a crossroads because Coach Doyle, another thing there, he's going to build you up as personal development, professional development, things like that. But he was just like, I've got an opportunity for you to go out to the University of Colorado, get some more experience. I was looking at some GA positions. I was actually enrolled in an exercise science degree to get my master's because I wanted to be at the college level, and you just needed that. I was at a crossroads of, okay, do I just need to go and start making money, or do I want to continue to pursue this? My family just really didn't have the means to ship me off to Colorado or do anything else. I was already doing the University of Iowa internship unpaid. So I talked to a lot of my mentors, one of them being from College. He was my first year seminar teacher that helped me guide through all my 4 years And I asked him, and he was like, well, why don't you just ask Greg Dunn for a job? And I knew Greg throughout college because I worked a lot of odd jobs throughout college, and his wife was actually one of my psychology professors at Co.
Okay.
So I knew he was a great guy. I knew he made great money, and I knew a couple of the people at the firm at the time. I just didn't know them well or what they did.
Yep.
And so I just kind of took a chance on it. And he's like, ask him for a job. I think he's looking. So
and is Greg Dunn, did he have an agency?
he was the agency owner at the time at Benefit Solutions. So yeah, I got into a suit and tie and asked him for a job.
A little different than a weight room, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm curious, like looking back at your sports career and the fact you got a chance to see sports at a very high level, being a strength and conditioning coach at the University of Iowa. What do you take from your days on the field, and what are you applying to your business life right now?
Well, not only in sports, but even just, what my parents instilled in me early on, just with hard work. They own their own construction business. Like I mentioned, if I wanted a new skateboard, a new stereo or things like that, it's okay. Well, what can you do to earn that? Come on to the job site or do this and that. And that's one of the things that kind of stuck with me and why I actually asked Greg for a job, because as I was doing odd jobs for him, whether it's at some of the properties that he owned or his own home, he would give me this long list of things to do. And he's like, this would be good for a week. And I'd knock it out that day. He mentioned to me one time, he's like, you keep working this hard, you can come work for me. So
you started working for Greg at like doing odd jobs
just to get through college. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So my mentor actually, he would try and work with different football players to get them to stay on campus for the summer.
Okay.
And so he'd find odd jobs for them to do. And then that would give them an opportunity to, complete their workouts and, have that group of, football players to work out together.
Yeah. You and I went for a walk last night, and one thing that's very obvious with you is your discipline. Talk about where, again, I call it the work off the field, and it's not how to just become a better health insurance advisor. It's what are you doing to make yourself better off the field all around? What role does exercise and diet play in your life today?
Work out every day, try and get my steps in, but diet, definitely. I'm getting that more dialed in. I did 75 hard, and that was kind of the eye opener. I think I was the type of guy that even in college, you go to the cafeteria, you load up your plate and eat whatever you want.
Well, you need calories.
Yeah. And you work it off, and you don't have to worry about weight gain and things like that. And you continue to do that, after sports and things like that. And I think I've kind of found myself working in the gym and just trying to outwork that diet.
Okay.
And so when I did 75 hard, I just did a macro based diet, and I was, weighing all my foods, and that was kind of eye opening. It's, that American diet where very low protein, high carb, high fat. I wasn't eating the wrong foods by any means, and, fruits, vegetables, meats, things like that. I just wasn't eating the right amounts. So that was pretty eye opening. And so got my, diet dialed in now, and now it's, easy, and I dropped 30 pounds, and it's been pretty sustainable.
So this guy, I've got to share this. So you had your surgery on your hip. When was that?
12 weeks ago.
It was 12 weeks. So this would have been what, March, April?
March 20th. So
I hosted a half-day workshop. I think it was 2 days after your surgery.
It would have been a Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, it was a Thursday.
Surgery on a Wednesday.
Okay, it was the day after. The day after you had surgery. This guy is on the workshop taking notes, literally laying on the couch because you weren't supposed to move.
Nope. Ice and elevate.
That is the definition of discipline. Talk though now, because I have a very big passion. When I was selling health insurance, one of the reasons I spent so much time exercising and eating well, outside of how it made me feel, was I felt like it was an obligation. Because if I'm going to go sell health insurance and talk to these groups about the fact their workforce is not healthy, that is why rates are going up, I better dang well look the part.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is your philosophy around that? Because you are very passionate about health. What role does that play and impact what you do as a health insurance advisor?
Yeah, it makes a huge impact. Again, going back to 75 hard, and just getting those workouts done, cutting out sweets, cutting out alcohol, you're literally just like on a constant high of just high performing, and you get more done and you wake up earlier, you go to bed sooner. And once you get a taste of that, like it makes you not want to really go back to, eating junk foods or, over consuming alcohol and things like that. Just because your relationships are better, your work life's better, everything's just really, better. But yeah, I mean, when you get into, the health insurance consulting and things like that, I mean, you look at some of these claims and, people are diabetic. And what can you do to, obviously reverse that? Diet and exercise, type 2 diabetes, all the MSK surgeries, people are carrying around more weight nowadays. So a lot of what could be solved, and, the health care and health insurance side of things could just be solved with, good diet.
Well, and you even play the part. You were telling me when you had your hip done, you drove 2 hours to get it done by a facility you thought was going to be higher quality. Granted, it was a client of yours, but at the same time, you are playing your part. You're doing what you're asking others to do, right? You're walking your talk. And I think that's really important. Talk to us a little bit about your routine. I think people would love to know, like, okay, you're very disciplined on a daily basis. Talk to us a little bit, like, what are some of the non-negotiables, things you just do every day?
Now, I try and be as disciplined as possible. It's
no one's 100%
work in progress, but alarm goes off 4:45 in the gym by 5:15, 5:30. Do about 45 minutes of weightlifting, things like that. I'll walk on the treadmill sometimes, and then we just got a sauna, so now I'm starting to hop in the sauna, and then I bring all my stuff with me, and then I'll hop in the shower, and sometimes I'll do a cold shower then right after the sauna. It's perfect. Then go straight to the office. Once I get to the office, I might open up my laptop, delete some emails, and then I make my breakfast at the office. And so eat the same thing for breakfast.
I was going to say, that's what I want to hear, like diet wise, what are the things you're consistently doing? We talked about it last time with protein and stuff like that.
Drink the protein shake on the way to the office. Once I get to the office, I'll do, toast with peanut butter and honey, Ezekiel bread. That's just one of those things I could cut out, but I just really enjoy the honey and the peanut butter. And then Acos Pro yogurt, there's 20 grams protein there, a banana, and some chia seeds in my protein. So that's kind of my breakfast. And I think that's about 55 grams of protein. And then once we get into mid-morning, then I might have a protein bar, and then lunchtime. So I'll grill all my chicken for the week. And then I'll rotate like vegetables or fruits. So I'm not eating the same thing.
Food preparation.
Yep. Every Sunday.
Perfect. Same here.
Yep. And then for the dinner, afternoon, I'll do a collagen shake, because that's like another 15 grams of protein, and then like a Chomps, turkey stick. And then dinner time, I rotate that because it's a little bit easier. I'm at home. I can cook because I do enjoy cooking. I'll do ground turkey, or I'll do a salmon. I just got a quarter cow, so I'm doing a lot more beef. And then again, rotate.
And you said like about usually trying to get a gram to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight, gram of protein per pound of body weight. Last night we had dinner, and you did something I do a lot of that I didn't do last night, which is like, I think one way to get that protein in, a lot of people don't do this, is when you order a meal like stir fry, ask for double chicken. Ask for 2 orders. That's the way to get your protein. And it's low calorie. Chicken's not high calorie. Way to get your protein in. So this has been an awesome conversation, Colton. I wanted people to get a chance to know you a little bit. I've been impressed by your discipline on and off the field. You are a huge advocate in the health insurance industry about how employees need to be getting better access to the healthcare system. You're in Iowa, which is a lot of small rural towns, and you're doing an awesome job building, trying to build plans around bringing the community together, keeping employees within the community. For the advisors, anybody who's watching this, like, what advice would you give somebody who is maybe lacking the motivation right now, maybe lacking energy, whatever it is, discipline? What advice would you give them to get back on the right side of momentum?
Just kind of going back to, what my parents instilled in me. It's going to be hard work. So you're going to have to put in the work. And then, just constant education. One thing that I learned at University of Iowa, just always be learning and reading books and listening to podcasts. Obviously your podcast. I listen to a handful of other podcasts and consuming, information. Sometimes people ask me, what do I listen to? Well, I'm working out. It's not music. It's either audiobooks or podcasts. And then just really find, a good group of people that are, willing to be your accountability partner. I found myself in certain situations where I felt like I was kind of alone and, no one was, motivating me or going with me. And just, try and find, those select few people that might be within your own, agency, or, there's a lot of other groups like Ascend or, Health Rosetta. There's a great community on LinkedIn. And, that's one thing that kind of, ignited or, I shot up or, accelerated my career was just reaching out to people on LinkedIn. And now I'm in just a group text chat with a bunch of guys, solving problems or complaining or, motivating or whatever the conversation.
Well, we talked about that last night. Your journey is very similar to mine when I got to Colorado, when I was like, oh crap, like I'm in a market, nobody knows me. I have to reach out. I started reaching out to people in the network in the industry on LinkedIn, people I've never met before. And that's how I started to learn about all these cost containment and to get all the groups. And you did a lot of that same. It was that proactive. Yeah. Don't feel alone. Don't feel like you're on an island. Reach out for and ask for help.
Yeah. I've always been the type of person that wants to know everything too. And it's kind of a slap in the face, like, hey, Colton, you're never going to know everything in this industry. It's just so complex. And so, having those resources and those people to lean on, ask questions to really. Well,
and do you feel like your personal development journey really started at Iowa when they made you read those books and actually write reports on them?
Oh, absolutely.
That's awesome. I was actually blown away when you said that. So, well, hey, man, I want to thank you. Yeah. Like I said, one thing I told you last night is you're going to have a ton of success in this business simply because you're going to outwork a lot of people. I think one of the realizations most of us have in this career is we get in it. People tell us we can make a lot of money doing it. Yeah. What they don't tell us all the time is, oh, by the way, you have to work your ass off to get it. And that's something I think you'll never be afraid of doing. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of success.
Yeah. And that's one thing that my agency owner said early on, continue to work hard, but always do what's right for the client. Yeah. And the money will follow. And so, I think I got into it for the wrong reasons, but
most of us did.
Knowing, how impactful you can be on that business that you work with. And then the people that they employ, there's testimonials after testimonials of, how much of a positive impact, some of the solutions we're bringing to some of these clients that, that's, these HR C-suite individuals have put their trust in us to deliver.
Well, and that's why I wanted you on the show, man. You walk the talk, you practice what you preach. You are very passionate about what you do. You care about your clients. You're always looking around the corner for them. And at the end, and you're putting in the work off the field. You're a student of the game. And that's what matters. So thanks, man. I appreciate being on the show.
Yep.
That's all we got for today's episode of the Bullpen Sessions podcast. One thing that would really help us both and other new potential listeners is for you to rate this show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in to listen to the show. Also, make sure to link up with us at CompleteGameConsulting.com on social media. And please share this podcast with anyone who you think might enjoy it. Until next time, remember, clarity creates confidence. Confidence creates consistency. Consistency makes you unstoppable.